guys, it is I, once again, the conspicuous Moo. So yes, it's here, finally, 9.1 on the public test realm. How much of it is on there? Let's have a first impression. Let's look at the monk changes. Let's look at some of the more general changes as well, the good points and the bad points. It's a first impressions video. Let us get cracking. Now I do need to stress that the background footage that you are seeing is from the Shadowlands PTR 9.1, so that does mean that there could be a few spoilers in there. So, you know, if you don't want the content to be spoiled for you, then just flick to another tab and do something else. Go to BBC News. There's always just something going on there, usually involving Prince Philip. Now, let's get on to the most important thing first, which is, of course, the monk changes. So, there aren't many, has to be said, and there's absolutely nothing for Windwalkers. So far, and the Brewmasters have just had, like, you know, that 10% damage reduction that they were going to put in anyway. So this is all about the Mistweavers this time, but you know, it is essentially good news. So let's get into it. So first off is this tantalising oddity, which is that Revival has been changed from a 3-minute cooldown to a 3-minute recharge, and that the charges have been changed from none to 1 charges. So that nobody really knows what's going on here. There's nothing standing out. I mean, there's a lot of open speculation at the moment. You know, is this going to be a legendary that allows you to have 2 charges, for example? That would be very useful in raid encounters, because, you know, that is pretty much our only big raid cooldown as is. And so, you know, that's a possibility. Maybe it's another mechanic that they're trying to weave in the background. Who knows? But yeah, it's got to be done for a reason. So it'll be interesting to find out what they plan to do with Revival. The much better news for Mistweavers is that it looks like a lot of the concerns have been listened to in terms of Mistweaver PvP. Now, I'm not much of a PvP myself, I'm pretty useless, but, you know, I think one of the most common complaints that Mistweavers have had in PvP is that you can't do that while stunned, you can't do anything while stunned, you are now dead while stunned. So, you know, they haven't had the ability to counteract. They basically just get locked down and destroyed. So there have been a couple of changes here. A number of the PvP talents have been messed around with. Now, some of them are less exciting than others. Some of the counteract magic, for example, looks very much like an arena ability, because to get the full benefit of the healing increase, you would have to pretty much focus one person and dispel them consistently. But Dematerialize is the one that I think a lot of Mistweavers are going to get quite excited about. It's really harking back to the very beginning, when monks were first created. Dematerialize was a bit of a pain point for people actually facing monks in PvP. But, you know, Dematerialize into mist while stunned, so it's passive, reducing damage taken by 40%, reforming over 3 seconds. So, you know, it does give us the possibility of being able to recover from a stun, which at the moment is rather difficult to do. Eminence has also been changed. It's still an odd choice of a name, considering Eminence's history, but let's move on. Transcendence Transfer can now be cast if you are stunned. Very important. So this means that, you know, if you are out in the field, you'll be able to drop your Transcendence down. You get stunned, you'll be able to port out of it, which gives you additional recovery time. So yeah, I think Eminence is going to be a very popular choice as well. Peace Weaver I could do without. Refreshing Breeze was removed and it was replaced. Essentially becomes a super dispel if you are using Soothing Mist and Expel Harm. Now, that's a pretty niche ability to start with. You know, it can be used, but it's not used on a very regular basis. I think that's what I'm trying to say, particularly if you're fist weaving. So, yes, it does make Expel Harm a little more useful. I still don't think a lot of people would be taking Refreshing Breeze right now. That would be my thought. Surging Mist is gone, and Thunder Focus T has picked up a couple of new abilities. Now, these are definitely PvP related. The first one, when you activate Thunder Focus T, the Crackling Jade Lighting knockback will be instantaneous, so that's an additional kiting tool for you. And the Essence Mods will increase your movement speed by 70 and make you immune to movement impairing effects. So it's not all CC, but, you know, snares and the like. So, you know, while it's not perfect, that's definitely good news, definitely from a Mistweaver PvP perspective. You know, we might actually get some more Mistweavers actually doing PvP. So, excellent, well done Blizzard, keep it up. In addition, it looks like the Crane and Tiger figurine anima power has been removed for some reason. I think the most important question to ask is who cares? It's a temporary ability anyway, and it's in Torghast, and nobody likes Torghast either. So, yeah, I don't care, neither should you. Moving on. So it looks like they've listened very closely to, you know, the general feedback about class-based Covenant abilities, and they've decided that they're just going to build on top of that by introducing Covenant-specific Legendaries. So these are going to become a thing, apparently. The initial reactions don't seem to be overwhelmingly positive, but I'm sure they won't listen anyway. They do feel, from the ones that we've seen already, they do feel very glyphy in nature. You know, they're not making any sort of amazing changes to the actual abilities themselves. So, you know, they do feel far more like a glyph than they do an actual legendary. You know, I think you should stop, you know, putting orange things out there if they are just about as unlegendary as they could possibly be. And of course we're going to have to go back into Torghast and get more soul ash for these things as well. So how exciting is that? Plus, of course, you've got the additional excitement that if you change your Covenant, then you need to go and earn another Covenant-specific Legendary. Design 101, folks. Now, I seem to remember there was a video back in BFA, and where Preach basically got confirmed that the reason why the server would slow down so horribly when there were multiple players in one place was because of all the different proc rates and all the different, you know, corruption, and you've got your Azerite trades binging off, and, you know, you have 40 people in there, everything slows down and lags balls. So this just looks like you're just adding another layer of prockiness and complexity. You know, you already have the soulbind system and the conduits and, you know, all of their stuff. And now you're going to add another layer on top of the class Covenant abilities you shouldn't have bothered designing in the first place. Well done, you. I don't think that's going to help the service. I don't think it's going to help us. I think it's not a good idea, and you should get rid of it immediately. Thank you so much. Talking of soulbinds, yes, they did. They did get another level. Now, before you get too excited, you know, in terms of Nia, for example, you know, you get an extra potency. You get a couple of abilities that you could take or leave, and then you get the choice of an endurance and a finesse. And you know, it does look like that's pretty much how it's going to be. You will, as before, be earning the ability to use these as you go up in your new 40 renowns. So, you know, there will be another campaign to continue the relatively short campaigns that you had in the first place. And yeah, at the moment, I mean, there's a lot of placeholders in the PTR at the moment. You know, the renown wards are like, you know, new soulbind ability available, 1% additional stamina, you know, stuff like that. A mount to add to the 300 you already have. A title you probably never use because you already have 25, and probably 5 of those you already prefer. So yeah, you know, a lot of stuff that really is just manifestly useless. Never mind. The other question that immediately springs to mind is that, you know, if you're going to expand the soulbind tree, are you going to expand the amount of conduits we've got? Because let's be honest, there aren't that many class-specific conduits going in the first place, and a lot of them are useless. You know, they've been tested, they've been run, they've been simmed, and they are bad. Some are bad for different specs and stuff, but, you know, they're just bad. So are they going to fix those? We've had some early indications that they are going to adjust some of the conduits. It looks like they're taking the outlier conduits and just nerfing them for now. But we've only seen a few, so, you know, maybe they're going to redesign a few conduits and make them better, make them more competitive. Who knows? At the moment, meh. There is also an indication from the achievements that they've managed to determine that there's going to be a possible additional Torghast content coming. Now, you know, that would be terrific to get additional Torghast content if the Torghast content we've currently got was any good. I don't know if many people actually enjoy doing the Torghast at the moment, so, you know, if you doubled that, double the dumb, double the dull. So you might want to actually, you know, tweak Torghast itself before you go around adding additional bits to it. Just a thought. But let's not get too down and dumps. Okay, we'll start with some of the good things I got from just my initial playing around on the PTR. I was on there for 30 minutes, and in 30 minutes you would be able to mount them all. So that's good, because that means you don't have to do twisting corridors if you really onto that mount. You don't have to play the roulette with the shade hounds that comes around every 3 weeks. You know, all of that top design. You can just get them out of your choice and run around. That's fine, that's great. Flying has not been implemented. It's probably another Pathfinder achievement or something, but they haven't actually implemented it on the PTR yet. At least I couldn't fly. But, you know, there does seem to be a lot more in the PTR than I actually anticipated there would be. And, you know, I was thinking, you know, a couple of soulbinds and conduit. But yeah, but, you know, Korthia's there. You know, the map's a little grainy, and probably incomplete, but, you know, the initial quests are there. All the setup is in place. You know, your new waypoint, you pull the covenants through, all of that is happening. and is in place, and you've got all your dailies set up as well. Of course, it can be the same without the dailies. So there's most likely going to be another reputation as well, let's be honest, and probably another currency just to complicate things further. You know, just got to keep filling up that currency tab. But yeah, there is a lot. You know, the Battle for Ardenweald, that's, you know, perfectly fine. I mean, there's nothing inspirational and groundbreaking in any of this new content, but it is at least new content. Unfortunately, if you have one character, like some people, you know, that you're only going to experience it once, so you know, the reusability is going to be fairly low on that. I think one of the most important things for me is that, you know, someone in Blizzard has actually listened to Mistweavers complain about, you know, how they play in PvP, and have started to make some changes. Dematerialize, excellent. Eminence, excellent. That's the sort of thing they were needing to be like a little bit more competitive, and that little bit more needed and wanted. So, you know, they are starting that. We are still waiting for major Windwalker or Brewmaster changes, but it's early. You know, this is the first iteration of the PTR patch. Hopefully there's more to come. The raid will open, I think, on the 16th, so in a couple of days. Just the first couple of bosses. But, you know, there's still a lot of placeholder stuff in the raid, but at least it's starting to take shape. They've got something to show us. Tazavesh is the Mechagon-style dungeon. It's going to be Mythic only to start with. All the loot is in place, and the majority of the bosses are in place and their mechanics and stuff, but you can't actually access it yet. There are still a couple I haven't finished. So we expect to see those in the next week or so. And but, you know, there's not a massive amount, but there is more than I expected. So, you know, credit to them on that score. If we want to go into the less edifying aspects of this PTR, in the first impressions, it does seem to me, anyway, personally, that they're taking things that were very popular in the first place, in the first patch, and they're just doubling it. You know, there's a Control-C, Control-V, here's 40 more renown, here's some additional Torghast. You know, we're going to get additional missions. I can't wait to see what missions we get. You know, they still, the Soulbind system is still inflexible. You know, if you are a Mistweaver who does Mythic Plus, does PvP, does raids, but also likes to moonlight around the place as a Brewmaster and a Windwalker, and maybe try some different content out there, this is still a very inflexible and annoying system. Conduit energy is still there. I haven't heard anything about any Torghast changes that suggest it's going to be any better. 40 levels of renown. Why? What's the point? You're just like slowing us down so we can only get 2 renown a week and get 1% additional stamina. It's like they're doubling down on it, you know. It's like, we take your concerns into consideration, but, you know, these are the systems that we put an awful lot of effort into, and despite the fact that they're not working, we're just going to double down on them, if that's okay. Don't forget to stay subscribed. You say, well, no, not really. You know, that's just not very dynamic or interesting content. It was boring before. If you give us another bunch of boring, you're just going to have people leave again. From just this first look at the PTR and, you know, what the changes are and all of the stuff, you know, at the end of the day, would I resubscribe for 9.1? Yeah. For a month. But, you know, I think Korthia, while it's new and fresh at the moment, is going to get boring very, very quickly. Looks pretty hubbish. Looks pretty Broken Shore-ish. A prettier Broken Shore, but, you know, still, it's the mall, still. That hasn't changed. So it's going to have the same more things going on. And I'm sure we're going to get a new currency with Fenari, so we'll have to do that all over again. And that's not exciting either. So, I mean, you know, Tazavesh and the raid at the moment would be the only reasons I come back, and they're just too early in development for me to say, oh yes, absolutely, I'm sticking around for longer. But yeah, sure, when 9.1 comes out and whenever, then yeah, I'll put a month in. But, you know, I think it might be sooner than we think, though. So, you know, it may not be as late as August now, so they might surprise us. But that is all for the future. So I will continue to keep you updated on all of the monk developments and, of course, all of the 9.1 PTR major news as it comes in. Let us all pray that Sylvanas dies horribly in this raid. Absolutely had enough of her now. And I will be back relatively soon, whenever that may be. But until then, I am the conspicuous Moo, and I am dematerializing in front of you.